Hi, everyone. I just got an email from somebody who was talking about men and women roles when it comes to finances in their house and where they include their spouse in the conversations and who makes the decisions, that kind of thing, right? So I just thought that I'd pop on quickly and share my perspective on that and maybe help if you are kind of trying to manage finances and you have a partner. Let me know in the comments, like, is it you that does most of it? Is it him, or is it your partner that does most of it? Do you work on it 50-50? Like, how do your finances work? um, this is an area that so many of the people who come to me for coaching are really, really struggling with getting on the same page with their partner. It's so much easier than most of us make it. So here's what here's how we do it, and how I encourage my clients to do it, and kind of my analogy around this. Okay, so Graham and I cook together sometimes. Not very often. We've got this schedule where one of us is at home, one's at the office, and then the next week we switch off. And so we don't cook together very often. I don't love cooking, but he does, and he's a way better cook. So when we do cook together, that's a good thing because dinner's probably going to be yummier. So, but when we cook together, we pick a recipe. And when I say we pick a recipe, I'm not necessarily referring to, like having a recipe card or book or site or something in front of us, right? But we know what we're making together, right? We have a goal in mind. We have an objective that we are both in agreement to. You'll start to see how this analogy uh, is very, very similar to making financial decisions and having financial conversations. So as we're cooking, I do some things and he does some things. We're deciding along the way who's going to do what, right? Have you guys ever done that? Right? Like, pretty normal. You're making something with somebody, like, I'll do this over here, you chop that, you stir this, you whip that, whatever it is, right? So really normal for two people to work side by side together on one common goal. Now, if you are like Graham and I, you don't sit there and divide it 50-50 to make sure it's fair. I don't make sure that I cut up the same amount of onions as he's cutting up peppers. We don't do that. I don't know if you do, but we don't do that. We're not measuring out amounts. We're not counting number of tasks to make sure that things are fair. Because it doesn't matter if it's even. What matters is reaching the objective. What matters is the agreement, that what matters is that this is workable. Being fair, that doesn't matter when you're making soup. The other thing that we don't do is we don't try to both chop the onions at the same time on the same cutting board. We don't do that. That would be weird, wouldn't it? You each do different parts of the task to reach your objective. You have different responsibilities, not even different. And you don't try to do the same thing as the other person. Because if you did, that would be weird. You'd be bumping into each other, you'd be cutting yourself or them. So you don't worry about it being even, and you don't do things at the same time, the same thing at the same time. But you work with a common objective in mind that you agree on that is workable. So that's no different than how to manage your finances. And I know I'm making this really simple and using this simple analogy, but I realize that that does take communication. That does take, a common goal. That does take respect and a respectful communication. That does take time to have those conversations in the first place, right? So all of those are required as well. It doesn't matter who manages the budget. It doesn't matter who pays the bills. It doesn't matter who does the transfers. It doesn't matter who takes the cash out to give the kids for allowance, whatever is included in your system. It doesn't matter who does it. But one person needs to be designated to do it. And that one person doesn't need to feel like it's a burden on them because the other person is going to do something else. And I don't necessarily mean something else with your budget or your finances, but I mean something else like in your life, right? Graham does a lot more outdoor work than I do. And I have to remind myself of that every time I'm vacuuming. Yet again, why don't they vacuum? But I never mow the lawn. So I'm not going to complain that he's not vacuuming unless I'm willing to accept that he complains that I don't mow the lawn. And our lawn is many, many times bigger than our floor space. So he's got way more work to do than I do. So I don't worry about things being even. I don't worry about him doing his share in this particular area because he's doing his share somewhere else. So it doesn't matter who does the budget, who moves the money. What does matter is that you're on the same page about it. What does matter is that you have a common objective in mind. What does matter is that you guys are working together and you have great, respectful communication about the whole thing. Okay? And when the budget is in order, when the plan is in place, this is really no different than working on a recipe together. Just because you're following a recipe that you've agreed to does not mean you can't add something new to the recipe. I might want it a little bit more spicy, and it's okay for me to suggest that and ask for his agreement on upping the ante. So just because you have a plan and a budget does not mean that it can't be changed. You're not marrying your budget. You're not marrying your pot of soup, your recipe. You can change it as you go, but some communication and some agreement is required to do that, right? It's the same as your goals. It's the same as your budget. You can change your budget. You can change your plan. You can change your path. But having a plan to change and a plan to come back to is really important. And it can't live up here. It can't. Get it on paper, open an Excel spreadsheet, do it however you want to do it. But it can't be up here because your partner can't see what's up here. It needs to be on paper. And you need to be able to have a conversation about it. So money quite often becomes a conversation that's not really about money and is more about, communication, relationships, and whatnot. It's not always just about the money. But you got to have your plan on paper. How do you know if you're on track? How do you know if you want to change your plan if you didn't have it written down in the first place? So to work with your partner when it comes to money is no different than cooking with them in the kitchen. You have an objective in mind. You're each willing to pitch in to do whatever needs to be done. It doesn't matter if it's even. It doesn't matter if it's fair. And you don't try to do the other person's job. Don't be cutting the onions while the other person is already cutting the onions. Make sense? I'd love to hear. Shoot me a message and tell me how things are going with your finances. How do you talk to your spouse about it? Or comment in this video. This is a very, very, very common challenge. A lot of my clients tell me that they're hiring me just to bring a third person into the conversation, just to open up the communication and make sure that it's not his idea or her idea, that we're able to talk about it in a different way because I'm there. And so if you are interested in financial coaching, let me know. Shoot me a message. I'll tell you what it's all about. I do one-on-one work for 4 months with clients. We get amazing results. If you want to learn how to budget, shoot me a message. Go to prettymoneyclub.com/budget sign up. Go get my free budget. You'll be enrolled for a free 5-day course on how to use that budget template because it's probably different than the ones that you've tried before. And if you're interested in my other online programs, shoot me a message, paintingmindtheclub.com. Next course is coming up very soon. Summer round, and it's a good time for mums to have a look at their finances while their kids aren't in school and before the busyness of back to school September comes around. Hope that helps everybody. Have a great weekend.